The big game is right around the corner, so let Old Southern Barbecue help you plan your big feast. Wings, ribs, sides, or sauces, no matter what you choose, it'll surely bring your crowd to its feet. You can order online at oldsouthernbarbecue.com or visit one of their 4 locations in Minneapolis, Arden Hills, Hudson, or Shakopee. Are you looking for a dedicated partner for your lacrosse needs? ES Lacrosse has got you covered. If you're brand new to the game, a seasoned vet, or a dedicated lacrosse parent, ES Lacrosse is the go-to partner for Minnesota lacrosse and DTA Nation. Whether you need new gear, a restringing of your current setup, custom uniforms or apparel for your team, or one of their awesome starter sets for your brand new lacrosse player, the selection, expertise, and service at ES Lacrosse is unmatched. You can visit them in-store at one of their 3 metro locations in Woodbury, Chanhassen, and Vadnais Heights, or visit them online at eslacrosse.com.
And welcome to Down the Alley. This is PMAC.
And Ted T.S. Spirides.
And Katie.
You're going to hear a lot of it in this interview coming up post Vikings loss. Ted, I know you and me kind of previewed the game last episode. We may have been too hopeful, maybe too positive. How are you feeling coming off that loss?
I just like to say I really had no faith and was not thinking they were going to win.
Yeah, it's one of those things that every year for the last, 25, 30 years, it gets a little easier because you kind of know it's going to happen. I was positive. I was very positive on the last episode. I predicted a win. I thought, the hiccup in that last game of the regular season would maybe kind of be like, hey, it's a good time to lose that one so that you can be ready to go for playoffs. It didn't matter. They just weren't talented enough. And I think that was a thing we all kind of maybe knew in the back of our head with some of the close games against not very good teams all year. And shout out to them for finding a way to have a fun season. But, you had mentioned in the last episode kind of like, we'll know in the first quarter.
That was gonna be the thing that was the only thing I think I said correctly last episode about the Vikes was we'd know in the first quarter, and I'm pretty sure everyone knew in the first quarter. Katie, you and me have been watching the last few Hard Knocks, and
I know. Is there going to be one more episode?
I don't know.
Because there's a wild card game.
Right.
I had to watch the wild card game.
I think there's gonna be more episodes. But we've had fun watching those. I just a quick topic for the pod. Ted, I don't even know if do you watch Hard Knocks at all?
I've seen it. I haven't watched it recently.
It's like my favorite show.
It's a good show, and a couple parallels. This series, they've got 4 coaches, 4 teams. They're kind of doing a whole division. On there. So, yep. So it's kind of fun, and you get to see what we were talking about last week, different personalities of each program, of each coach. But number 70 for the Ravens, Katie, you were shouting him out.
Favorite. I don't even remember his name.
I don't know his name. Number 70 though, he even caught the casual football watching eye of Katie.
Yeah.
Lineman, blue collar player, but he was everywhere. Every single play, he was picking up Lamar after he, took a hit. He was getting Henry up off his back, helping the receivers up. He was everywhere.
He was like running. He was running to them, like for the hand. He wanted to be the guy to be like, let me help you up.
Every single play.
There he was.
So his name is Roger Rosengarten.
Big fan.
And there was a clip that just went viral about him because I don't know if this was in the show, but he was mic'd up, so it must have been for the show.
Okay.
Oh, but maybe it's tonight's show because tonight it airs.
I was seeing clips of it online, so I think
okay.
already happened. But he went up to Myles Garrett, who is a
and got he wanted to trade his jersey.
Yeah. So he was like, "Hey, I'm a nobody, but can I have your jersey?" And Myles Garrett was just like, "No, man, you're in the league. Like you're more than a nobody, and like, yeah, you can have my jersey or whatever. We can."
Yeah, how wholesome is that?
Yeah.
Like it is like this, and And that was before this game. And we were like, oh, that's so sweet. And I remember that clip. And then like he's literally, the play is done and he's still jogging as fast as he can to run over and help his teammate up.
Yeah. Because you're right. After you pointed out, we kept watching, like just being a good teammate. Like, I don't know, just it was he was everywhere. He was buzzing around. He was
wants
playing
Myles
well.
Garrett's jersey.
He was engaged. He's trading jerseys, with the other team. He's just, I don't know. I guess there's no strong parallel to lacrosse other than like his energy and being a good teammate is kind of all I had on it.
That's such a great great mantra for the new year.
That not a ton going on lacrosse wise at the moment. We've got our winter training. I know captain's practices, winter leagues are kind of going on. Last week we talked about a podcast. Ted, have you read anything lacrosse related or rant related? That's caught, or Katie, that's caught either of your eyes or attention?
I saw a write up from Inside Lacrosse about the college season because I had talked about it on the last episode about kind of the betting odds that came out for Division I teams to win the national championship, and they had to the way it was the way the article, it was like a challenge. It was like you have $100 to spend, like on teams, like who would you pick? And a lot of them would say like I'm going to put most of my money on one of the favorites because of these reasons, and then I'll throw $5 on this team for this reason and this team, so they all kind of broke it down. And there was an interesting comment that one of an analyst made about I put my money on, I think it was either Virginia or Notre Dame, one of the two, being like, even though that they may have lost some really good players or like it's not the same team as last year, they're programs that know how to win tournament games. So like, I just thought that was interesting, and you can kind of take that to high school too. Of like every year in high school lacrosse, we have these up and coming teams, these Cinderella teams, like out of nowhere, a Buffalo or a Chisago Lakes or a teams like that have these like great years. But as we get through the playoffs, it always, and boys and girls on the side, like boys and girls side, it seems like it kind of comes down to the last common four or five teams, like every year, or maybe even less than five, like 3 or 4 teams. It's always kind of like the inevitable. And when we went through those state champions with Rob and Sean, it was like kind of the same thing. Obviously it was a BSM PL recently, but before that, Blake Benilde or Eden Prairie Blake or whatever. And I just thought that was interesting, of like teams that know how to win when it matters and how to win tournament games versus just being a really good team on paper. And so I just thought that was like an interesting thought, and I'd love to dig more into like what like is is Notre Dame and Virginia 10 times more talented than Duke and Syracuse? Probably not, but they know how to win tournament games better than like one and done playoff games. Or is Prior Lake significantly more talented than the teams that they beat the years that they were going? And Benilde was obviously loaded too, but I just thought it was an interesting like concept.
Yeah, no, it is interesting. I think you asked, or we talked about last episode, like, oh, what's the secret sauce? What do you guys do? And it's like, if it was that easy, we'd be bottling the sauce. You know what I mean? So yeah, like once for Notre Dame, it's probably the consistency of what that coaching staff has done for the past 20 years. How long has that head coach been there?
25 years, 30 years.
Right. So, he's got a standard. He has a way of doing things. He's developed a culture. Okay. Well, you do that over a series of 25 years, consistency of whatever that standard is, it's extremely high there, right? It's going to be there. If you look at the Buffalo Sabres, their standard has been chaos, or a football example, the Browns. The Browns, their standard has been all over the place. They don't know what their standard is. They're not organized. You've got guys coming in and out of the office, right, every year and a half. There's no consistency. There's no standard. There's no operating system. They're trying to figure it out every year. Of course, they can't get over, the hump, right? Where I don't know. Does that make any sense? Like, am I making any sense?
It makes sense. And I think you're right. I think it's just, um, again, the margin between like a championship caliber team and then like the fourth best team is small, but like
It's
that's
tiny.
the difference, right? And is like it could be something that has nothing to do with the scheme you run and the players that you have. It could be just how you communicate your meeting times and like the bus times and like what the travel day looks like to the state tournament and what you do the night before and how you talk to the kids about that game. Like, are you making it too big? Are you nervous? Like, are you trying to change too much? Are you too like nonchalant about it and not getting them hyped? Like, there's so
Yeah.
many things, like all those standards, um, can probably factor into, again, when you get to a certain point in the season, everybody's good and everybody's athletic and everybody's talented.
Right.
So what gives you that one goal, two goal edge? And again, they didn't go into that much depth, but like someone made the comment of like, I'm putting my money on this team. I can't remember if it was Virginia or Notre Dame, it was one of the two, because they just know how to win when it like they just know how to figure it out when it's a playoff game, how to play the way they need to play in a certain way to win those games.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting topic, but we've got a great guest on. Um, now that I think about, because we just interviewed Mo, um, someone who roots start in Minnesota, literally started coaching youth lacrosse and took it all the way to NCAA Division II, international. Now at a boarding school out east. Has really been a part of basically every level there is, except for Division One. Eh, Awesome story. Uh, Paved her own way. Just nothing was getting in her way at any of the stops. Great story. A really cool interview. And again, another coach, completely different vibe than I think of any of our other interviews that we've had. A really great guest, and I think our listeners are gonna, really enjoy the story.
The big game is right around the corner, so let Old Southern Barbecue help you plan your big feast. Wings, ribs, sides, or sauces, no matter what you choose, it'll surely bring your crowd to its feet. You can order online at oldsouthernbarbecue.com or visit one of their 4 locations in Minneapolis, Arden Hills, Hudson, or Shakopee. Are you looking for a dedicated partner for your lacrosse needs? ES Lacrosse has got you covered. If you're brand new to the game, a seasoned vet, or a dedicated lacrosse parent, ES Lacrosse is the go-to partner for Minnesota lacrosse and DTA Nation. Whether you need new gear, a restringing of your current setup, custom uniforms or apparel for your team, or one of their awesome starter sets for your brand new lacrosse player, the selection, expertise, and service at ES Lacrosse is unmatched. You can visit them in-store at one of their 3 metro locations in Woodbury, Chanhassen, and Vadnais Heights, or visit them online at eslacrosse.com.
All right, welcoming Mo Gaitan to Down the Alley. I don't have any experience with Mo, but doing some kind of research and looking into our guest, very impressive resume, and had a huge impact and a kind of a wide impact on Minnesota lacrosse while she was here. Stops in Lakeville North, Rosemount, Concordia University, Augsburg. Also some national team experience before moving out east. Really excited to learn more and hear the stories. Mo, welcome to Down the Alley.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to dive into all things Minnesota lacrosse, especially from a few years ago.
And before we were recording, we were talking a little Vikings, coming off of a brutal game. Sounds like you are still a fan, always have been a fan.
always a fan, diehard. Anybody who questions that, inappropriate. Yeah, so huge Vikings fan. I was a big fan, like tailgated, did the whole thing when I lived in Minnesota. And then now out here, I'm actually like a part of the Minnesota Vikings fans in Boston group, and it's a pretty good time. We get after it, and it's like a slice of home every single week where we talk about the Twin Cities and the this and the that, and it's a pretty great.
So
Are
what's
most people in that like transplants, like from Minnesota or like just like the Vikings? I assume they're from here.
It's total like split down the middle. My first question to everybody is like, are you local? Or are you visiting? Because half of
Ah,
the folks are local and half of the folks are visiting, and I mean, it's just it's such an electric atmosphere, if I will. We sing the chant, we have the first down cheer. It's like the place goes bonkers. So
so
it's a good
what's the place in case we ever find ourselves in Boston during a Vikings game? We're gonna have to go. So
Absolutely.
where's the
The
spot?
730 Tavern. It's in Cambridge. And if you Google it, it's the first thing. It's on the Star Tribune list of, Vikings bars that are not in Minnesota. So it is the place to be, I will say.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
I
So
love Boston. How far out of Boston do you guys? You live in Massachusetts, or do you live in like? Yeah,
New Hampshire.
I think you don't. Like I know you live in like I know Massachusetts, but everything is so close out there.
I'll say quickly, like moving out to New England and Minnesotans feeling like, oh wow, everyone overlooks the Midwest. But I think we also overlook New England because nobody in my family can tell me where Vermont is and relate
Yeah.
to Rhode Island and Connecticut. But I'm in Connecticut, just across the border of Mass. So it's about an hour 15 drive. So it's a
Oh wow.
commitment and one that I'm excited to make on every single game day. So
Yeah. I love Boston.
yeah,
Been
it's
there a couple
oh,
times.
next time there's a lacrosse tournament out there, you guys know who.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a sweet city.
for sure, for sure. Where so did you grow up in Minnesota? Where or did you just happen to choose the Vikings and eventually end up in Minnesota?
Born and raised on the heartbreak, the whole thing. I was there for Gary Anderson, watching on my tube TV, the whole thing. So yeah, born it's in me. It's in me deep.
Uh, Jumping into lacrosse, you know, our era, lacrosse is relatively new to Minnesota. When was your start? How was your start? How did you get into it? Was it kind of a second sport for you, or did you neighbor play, or what was your introduction to the sport?
For sure. So I was grew up in the Burnsville, Lakeville area. Actually lived in Burnsville, but the district had me going to Lakeville schools. And so
The Bermuda Triangle that we all live in.
What
yeah,
side?
right behind Buck Hill, right around there.
Oh, okay. So you're like we literally live across the highway from you. I see Buck Hill out this window.
Yeah, so it was in junior high, and one of my close girlfriends, we all played softball, and she was like, "I'm really thinking about trying this lacrosse thing. What do you think?" And we're all like, "Yeah, sure, let's give it a shot." And I remember showing up to like the introduction meeting, and it was the first time they had kind of an eighth, ninth grade team because it was just at a high school offering. Um, and so it was also the first year that they required you to wear goggles. So it was all the fuss, like, do we need to wear goggles? Do we not need to wear goggles? And so, we got our goggles on for the first time and
Yep.
we played. There were no boundaries.
I was gonna say, was this pre? So you're a couple years older than me, I think.
Thanks for
So
dating. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm old. I think I'm old. But I was like, is this pre? Because I played, I think it was we added boundaries at some like rate when I started playing.
I had one season with no boundaries. I
Yeah. Yep.
literally like it would go into the cows and we would just have to go into during the game. It was just ridiculous. So I think the sport of women's lacrosse has evolved with a lot of rules. That's one that is a good one, right?
What other sports did you play, or were you just ended up just being a lacrosse player, or?
Yeah, so right. So I was playing softball
uh,
and never looked back. I will say, all the love in the world to all the sports, but lacrosse was definitely the sport for me. And yeah, I played some like youth soccer, youth volleyball, but lacrosse really, I just fell in love with it. I just really, really enjoyed playing it. So really went down that path.
I guess how long did you play? Did you play through high school? Did you play in college, or was coaching kind of the next step for you?
Yeah, so I played throughout high school and then at college. So when I went to St. Cloud State University, there was no women's lacrosse team. So I founded the women's lacrosse team at St. Cloud. It was a club sport back then. That was in 2000, shoot, nine. I think eight, and it was amazing, right? And some of those girls, I'm very much so still in touch and still, kind of give back into that area, into the program, and et cetera. So I played throughout my time at St. Cloud, and then I've also just recently hung up my cleats when playing for the Columbia National Team for 2 World Cups.
Yeah, I definitely want to hear more about that. How did you get connected? And how does that work? Obviously, you were born in America, born in Minnesota. I know there's some different rules. If you've got like lineage, then you can play for the national team of certain countries.
Yeah, so I'm 50% Colombian. My whole father's side of my family lives down there. I've dual citizenship, the whole thing. So yeah, the story of kind of how Colombia lacrosse and Mo Gaitan met is a fun one. But I've been really participating with them for the last 10 years, and it's been just an incredibly rewarding program and opportunity to be a part of.
Where are, some of the coolest, places that you've gotten to play like with that opportunity?
Yeah. So I coached the U19 team in 2015. We were in Scotland, and then I played on the 2017 World Cup, and we were in Surrey, England. And that was awesome. And it was actually one of the coolest moments. I'm traveling there with my family. We have the place and et cetera, et cetera. When we get off the subway to go to, kind of the opening it wasn't the opening ceremonies, it was the day before that. But we got off the subway just in Surrey, and there was a huge poster of like the FIL, the Women's World Cup, come check it out. And all the countries were represented. And that was just a pretty eye-opening moment to be like, oh my goodness, that's me. That's what I'm participating in. And for, my club background and, a non-traditional Minnesota often I call it a non-traditional background, non-traditional route to kind of get there. Felt pretty incredible. So played there in England, and then I participated in the 2022 Women's World Cup in Towson. That was awesome. And then probably one of the coolest things was just this last fall, we went to Indianapolis and we participated at the U.S. Lacrosse Experience where Team Colombia, I was coaching, but Team Colombia was playing against the USA national team. So we're talking Taylor Moreno, Sam Apuzzo, Ali Kendi, Charlotte North, all on the same field as our, Colombians. And that was just pretty wild. And it was sixes, so the game, started and ended before you knew it. But it was awesome.
How, from the national team and the growth of the sport in general, is lacrosse starting to make its way to Columbia? Has it already been there for a while? What's the game like there compared to maybe here?
Yeah, for sure. So Columbia Lacrosse has been, it was established in 2014, 2015. I ran, in concert with Lottie, who's the founder of Columbia Women's Lacrosse. She got me down there and we ran a clinic, the first clinic for Columbia in Columbia for women. And that was in 2015. And ever since, we've just kind of been building and growing pretty quickly. We were established in 3 cities down there. That's Bogota, Pereira, and Medellin. And so I was just in Medellin in over New Year's, and we were doing the tryouts now for our upcoming qualifying team. And that was really incredible to then, see young women who I coached in 2015 continue their progress in Colombia, attend those tryouts, and do very well. We're announcing, our training roster like tomorrow, so that to watch that evolution and to see those areas continue to grow has been outstanding. But it is really challenging. There are so many hurdles with the distance, with resources and access that so many of the European countries don't really face, and a lot of the Latin countries that are closer. It's just, there's a lot of complicating factors, that is for sure.
How did you get connected with her? Like even in the beginning of it?
Yeah. So, back in the day, well, so the Colombia men's team participated in the 2014 World Championships in Denver. And so when I saw that, I was like, who is this? And what can I do? How can I, raise my hand? So I sent an email to just the Columbia email and I said, hi, here's who I am. I'm really excited. How can I get involved? No response. I wait a couple of weeks, same exact email, really, really excited. What can I do? Please let me just help in any way. No response. I sent a third email. I was like, I'm coming, I'm bringing gear. Tell me where to go and let's do something. And then sure enough, from there, that's when we set up the clinic. And it was just incredible. The first couple batches of donations that I was able to solicit from a lot of Minnesota teams and organizations to bring down. We still see Edina Lacrosse, a whole set of uniforms down there. It's just amazing. So that was really kind of the start of it. And it's really just the ball has been rolling ever since.
One thing, you talked about the Scotland, kind of England World Championships. Katie, correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't one of the club teams here like go out there for that?
Yeah, like the Lakers played in that. Like, because I
Was
had
there a
some,
youth
what were they,
tournament?
2017 grads? Were all
It-
those girls 2017
I don't.
grads?
I remember like a group of girls going and playing in like a youth tournament in Scotland. I think it was
Yeah.
Scotland. Is
Yeah,
that
it was those Minnetonka
correct?
girls, and they played for Minnesota Lakers, and they were like, "We're gonna go to this tournament," and I bet
Yeah.
it was the same one. Yeah,
So they host, most of the world championships will host a kind of youth tournament alongside to just get fans out there. And it's also a fundraiser and all of those things. So absolutely. I remember that now that you're mentioning that. Gosh,
yeah. They were
yes.
like a bunch. It was like they were 2017 grads, so it was
Mhm.
probably 2014, 2015
For sure.
year that they did that. What was your experience more moving it back to Minnesota? Like obviously played at Lakeville North now. Because you were here for quite a bit of time like a St. Cloud State. So how did you kind of like bridge that playing? Obviously you're still pretty much playing. We can call you a player still because you're very it's pretty current.
I'm shaking my
But
head. No, I'd like the record.
okay. Fair. But then to like kind of get into coaching, and then obviously you were like liked it enough to be around the sport still. So kind of bring us back to that kind of those first couple of years coaching, especially here in Minnesota.
For sure. I'll say really getting into the sport, like you said. So I went to Lakeville and we were the Pumas because we were
Yes.
two sports, but we were one team, Lakeville North and Lakeville South. And so the Pumas, we weren't officially sanctioned by the district, and we were playing on the junior high fields, and it was so dirty and muddy and all those things. And
This is the because I think I was coaching at Jefferson. I think this is the only time I've met you. I think was like 2012, 2013.
yeah, totally
Does
could
that
be.
sound right?
Yep.
Yeah. And I was like, I'm pretty sure that's when, and like, you guys were really good. Like, Lakeville girls sports when I was in high school, like, I played a lot of hockey too, were like, even the split, like, I was right in the split and they were still really dominant. I mean, they still are. The Lakeville South girls are still really good. And Lakeville North, like, great programs and stuff. So, anyways,
Right.
I remember that. Like, and it's like, and because we were too, we play like elementary, yeah, grass fields. My
Totally.
dad's like lining the fields. Like Yeah.
Exactly. I think I was talking to Becky Gensler, who's the current head coach at Lakeville North, and I asked, "Are you still playing for the Mud Bowl?" Because when I was a player in 2006, 7, 8. No, oh God, no. I graduated 2012
From college.
in college. Yeah, so it was.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're a year younger
Okay.
than me, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Good
think,
times. I'm the old one now.
No
See,
one's
I'm
keeping
always
score.
But
Ted's the
so
oldest.
anyway, during those times when we were playing on these really crummy fields, we just had this game where it was a total downpour and we were putting the mud on our face like it was our eye black. And then the next year we split. And so then we were saying, okay, we're going to play for the Mud Bowl. And there was this really influential parent, John Wynell, who was just instrumental in kind of the growth of lacrosse in Lakeville and also, kind of supporting the program when we were splitting. And so he created this like Stanley Cup like trophy called the Mud Bowl. And we would put mud in from that
Oh
field,
gosh.
take it out and put it on our eyes right before we would play. It was so good. And so, Becky said it's maybe not an active trophy now, but I encouraged her to reignite that flame. So we'll see.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think that should be, those types of things should be totally brought into lacrosse, like for rivalry games, like they do it in
Absolutely.
college football all the time, right? So, I love the idea, and yeah, anyone in Lakeville, I think you should bring the Mud Bowl back, even though you have turf.
Let's go. Yeah, right.
The B team still plays on grass, but actually it's very nice grass. So like their fields at South at least, I haven't played at North in a while, are like beautiful, lush green grass always.
Well, I was
But
just
anyways, so then yeah, so after the Mud Bowl, you got into coach. You went to St. Cloud State, started the program there.
Yep.
Take us back to that time.
Yeah. So, arriving at St. Cloud, I mean, college recruiting back in that day was not relevant in the Minnesota, Midwestern area, at least on the women's side. Certainly, I think Carthage, one of my teammates, Hannah Sopes, she went to Carthage. That was awesome. She was like the only recruit I ever knew in my class, right? And so when I went to St. Cloud, I just realized that I really wanted to continue playing and how can I do this? And there was a men's side. And Sean Clemensrud, I know you guys are pretty tight with him. He was coaching there and we just, I started getting involved, knocking on all the doors and saying, how can we start a team? How can we start a team? And sure enough, I put a sign up list out and we got 40 girls to come out on the first day. And, then once we got our practice schedule, which was like 11 p.m. to 1 a.m., those numbers dwindled quite quickly. But again, to see where we were the first year to, upon my graduation year, and then the program is still going. And it's just, yeah, it's so great.
Then where was your first? Did you start coaching at Lakeville North, or were you coaching at St. Cloud to start? Yeah, take us back to coaching at high school then.
Yeah, so my first coaching gig of all time was while I was in high school. I coached the 7th and 8th grade Lakeville, youth team, and that will come back later on this podcast, I'm sure. So that was my first stint. Then I went off to college. I spent 2 years just being a college kid, starting the lacrosse program, etc. But then I took over. I was assistant coach at St. Cloud Tech High School, which was St. Cloud area at the time. In 2011 is, I think, when I took over as head coach. And then that's also the year after is when I graduated. That's when I went down to Rosemount. I coached there for a year with Jeff Smith. I mean, what a throwback crew. It was pretty fun to do some, digging into all of this. And then after that, Rosemount stint, that's when I started at Lakeville North. And so my first year at Lakeville North was the 2013 year. And the 2013 year, fast forward, it was the senior class of that 7th and 8th grade group that I
Okay.
coached. And
Love it.
just such a cool full circle moment that I will always cherish.
And if I'm not mistaken, I don't have all my notes up here. Was that Lakeville North team? Did you guys make it to the state final? And you were the third program, if I'm not
I was gonna
mistaken,
say,
to be in a state final? Like, not a big deal.
You nailed it. Your notes are correct. Your memory is correct. Yeah, so that season was, a fairy tale. In so many ways. There was a roller coaster, as every season is. But in 2013, we had 4 losses. And those 4 losses were to Lakeville South, Burnsville, Eden Prairie, and Blake. And then we get to, our section game, and we knock off Lakeville South. And then or it's conference first and then section. And then we knock off Burnsville. And then all of a sudden we're like, oh my gosh, we can just keep avenging our losses because these are the teams that we're seeing. So right then we see Eden Prairie in the semifinal, and the lead up and the anticipation in the semifinal game felt like it was our Super Bowl, and it was even more than whatever the state championship could or couldn't look like, right? I had people coming out of the woodwork. People on the other side of the sidelines who I thought wanted nothing to do with me are like, oh my gosh, good luck. Here's what we did. We need to do this, and you got to do this. And, I had all sorts of community members reaching out. And it was just such an amazing moment, I thought, for Minnesota lacrosse. Judy Baxter and Eden Prairie lacrosse legends, but to be able to, make a dent in that long-standing history, right? 2007 was, I guess, the first MSHSL tournament, and to be the first team to have the opportunity to get there, it was awesome. And I mean, the wind was at our backs. Everybody was just really, really eager to see some change, and we were excited to do that. And that game, oh goodness, I can remember pretty clear as day. We were playing Emma Claire Fontenot, who went to Notre Dame, just an outstanding athlete on Eden Prairie. The official called a stick check on her, and this is in the first half. And let me just tell you, I did not call the stick check. I got a lot of criticism saying, well, why did you do that? How did you do that? I did not do that. And even I felt bad for the situation too. So they call a stick check, they leave her. It's the official's responsibility to, put the stick back in the game. They leave it on for the rest of the half. I'm like, oh my gosh. So then we start the second half. She gets her stick back. The officials call another stick check. And so then, they call another stick check. Our stick is illegal again. And I'm like, oh my, my heart was going out for this girl while also trying to coach this really epic battle. And then, sure enough, the way I remember there was 7 seconds left. Emma Claire just got her stick back. And after it's been out twice, she was on the 8 to take a shot to tie the game. And it went wide, and game over. And I got to imagine it's because she tightened her stick so stinking tight because she didn't want to get it stick checked again. So sure enough, the place goes nuts, and we advance onto the state championship game.
Did you end up playing Blake?
We sure did.
In the state championship game. Yeah. Insane.
Yes.
Is that the poster, or is that the clipping you have in your office behind you?
No, that's some UMD hockey.
Oh, sure. I mean, go Dogs.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That's my partner. I am a St. Cloud Go Huskies.
Right.
It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah. Ted went to UMD, so he's here for it.
There you go.
Love it.
But so that Blake game was also a saga. We were at halftime. We were down by 7, and then we were so that we were down by 7. Everyone was like kind of snoozing in the sidelines, or excuse me, in the stands. I was like, oh my goodness, this is not what we signed up for, right? We just put everything in that EP game. So here we are. It's halftime, and we have our team moment. We go back onto the field and we score 7 unanswered goals. I mean, Hannah Koloski, Louisville legend. She's like the all-time NCAA leading goal scorer for years. She goes off. And so all of a sudden, everyone's like, oh my goodness, we have a game again. And that was, I guess high school still does not have a possession clock, shot clock. So then the second Blake got the ball, again, a lot of credit to that organization and what they have done. And there was a lot of stalling and there was a lot of passing and a lot of inactive gameplay, which was so difficult. We ended up falling in that game by 2. And I just, I remember the reporter came up and was like, what did you tell those kids at halftime? Did you give them some Wheaties? What is going on? And truly, that was all credit to the girls. They just wanted that so bad. And they really rallied, and we're proud of all that, of all what that looked like. So
Yeah,
I'm
those were some good years.
I'm looking at the MN Lax Hub box score from that game right now. Just pulled it up. So you got Hannah Kowalski, like you said, Logan Dobratz, I think the Chanhassen coach now, if I'm
yes,
mistaken, was on your team. Ann Slusser, Annie Lyman,
Lydia Sutton.
Lydia Sutton on the Blake side. Just some big girls high school Minnesota names that played in that game. So
Like to
yeah,
this day, they're
I
still
know,
like
seriously, yeah.
powerhouse names of like epic battle.
For
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. And so Logan Dobrat, she went on to play at Marquette. She also
Yep.
is instrumental in Spain lacrosse. So her and I'm like so happy and excited and proud of her and for her and what she is, and so glad she's at Chan now.
You
And
guys speak Spanish to each other? Just kidding.
a veces.
Yeah.
No, I mean she lived there for years, so her Spanish is, she's outstanding. I'm still, working there, but no, I think Lydia, I've seen her also on the international stage with Canada. So that was, like you said, just a lot of legends on that field that day. And a fun fact, so that game was in 2013. So the 2022 women's lacrosse NFHSS rulebook has a picture from that game, which
Yeah.
I just have never been able to reconcile how or why 7 years later this
Yeah.
is the picture. It's like Ann Slusser, Hannah Kolaski. It's
So
just epic.
Have
And
you ever been on the MSHSL website? Because they probably have like the gallery of that game still somewhere.
I should do.
Because like there's like this it all goes, once it's stayed, it all goes to MSHSL like photography and stuff. So I would bet if you dig a little bit, there's like an archive of that game and like throwbacks. I mean,
That
I
would be
can tell on that picture too. It's like so pixelated and stuff. Like it's so dated already. You're right. Why did we pick that game? But that's super funny.
it's a national publication. Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
when
yeah.
it was the COVID year. I said somebody is
Yep.
messing with me. That's how
Yep.
I was
Yeah,
feeling.
yeah, yeah.
So coach in high school, um, some college lacrosse starts coming to town. Um, how did you want to be a full-time coach? Were you a full-time coach? What was the process from making the jump from high school to college? I definitely have more follow-up questions. But I believe you were on the original staff of Augsburg, if I'm not
Yes.
mistaken.
Yep.
So would love to hear about that jump and that process.
Yeah. So, I when I was in college, I was pursuing an undergrad in sports and recreation management and marketing, and I thought, certainly something in that category I was really excited about. Fast forward to where I am now in 2014, and that has, all kind of found its way. But in back, when Augsburg announced they were a program, I was, really like, wow, I would really love to be involved, and why not try and take this path and see what it can be, right? And so I was the first assistant graduate assistant at Augsburg, and yeah, first NCAA program in Minnesota, either gender, all levels, and playing that first NCAA game was incredible. It's I think my background shows a lot of kind of firsts in different ways and in different areas, and that was a really, really memorable first. And really, huge shout out to KK for popping me on and letting me be a part of that journey, because it was awesome. We had a lot of fun and we learned a lot, which, I think really helped me as I continued to try and progress in my own college career, coaching, and, gone from there.
Ted and I had a short stint, mostly pre-COVID, coaching college in Minnesota. Yeah, we definitely saw a lot of challenges with kind of a newer program. A lot of fun. We had a lot of fun. It was super cool. Like you said, but what were some of the challenges to, get a program, off the floor, first program in the state, at the NCAA level?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest hurdles that most everybody involved with the program would agree was just changing the perception of the level of lacrosse that we can aspire to, right? I mean, we were losing recruits, I'm using air quotes here, because they were going to play Gopher Club lacrosse. And, that's amazing, right? Acacia was the coach there, and I was so excited for her, but I'm also like, my goodness, you can, it's such a different experience. And because um, there was literally none of that before this moment. I think a lot of families and prospective students didn't understand the opportunity, right? The travel, the exposure, and the opportunity and the resources that are provided in that. So it was a really big learning curve to just say, like, hear us out, and if you're interested, come, and you'll get to experience it firsthand. That was a huge hurdle, for sure.
What were your favorite moments from Augsburg before we transitioned to Concordia?
Yeah, Augsburg, we were such a ragtag group, right? Because we're the first and we're just trying to, get everybody and anybody who wants to come. And we had some outstanding lacrosse players and young women. So there's just this ridiculous story where, we were on a team trip, and I like come out, we were all staying in the same house, which was amazing. Every team should travel that way. And I come out and I'm wearing jean shorts, but like they're normal jean shorts. And the girls were like, Jorts, and they were saying I'm so old and so dated for wearing jean shorts. And everybody listening will just, get a hoot from hearing that story, because it still comes up today. Like, it's like, oh, your memories. And they send it to me. I'm like, Marissa, get that out of here. And it's so funny. So, making some real core memories with those girls in that program was incredible.
So after your time at Augsburg, it seems like it confirmed you wanted to be all in, coaching, or at least, make it a substantial part of your life. Making that jump from, assistant. Were you studying? Were you in grad school there too? Is that what that meant? Graduate fellow?
Yes. Yep. Exactly.
And then making the jump to a head coach. Was that Concordia's first year too, or? So
Yes.
were you their first head coach?
Yes.
Why didn't that make my notes?
What do you do for like what do you do for like your if coaching isn't your day job? I'm so curious because like you are just such like a trailblazer of just like no program, let's start one. Like that is just like wherever you go, you just start programs. So I'm curious like what like if you're like in sales because you're just like, oh, you don't have a credit card terminal, let me get you one. Like I can see you doing that very successfully.
Yeah, no, that's great. I'm taking career path advice for the future, but no, I'm all good there.
Yeah, no. So Concordia, first head coach, you start the program there. First D2, only D2 program ever in Minnesota. And obviously that's still a program that's doing well. What was it like from, making the jump from being an assistant on a new program, now being the head coach at the next level, starting the program?
Yeah, it's a huge jump when you articulate it in that way. It's like, what on earth is this woman doing, and why does she think she's capable of doing it? And I think again, the state of Minnesota lacrosse was just at such an infancy when it comes to collegiate lacrosse that I talk about this with Reagan McCarthy, the current AD there now still, and she's like, we would probably never hire, a high school coach to be the college head coach for any other, kind of really established program.
Sure.
But because lacrosse was so new, and I had the experience at Augsburg, and I've, been with a couple of programs, et cetera, et cetera, that seemed to fit. And what Concordia did really, really well was they gave me a year to, kind of recruit and build and establish a foundation. And not every brand new program gets that. And that was really instrumental in us being able to, kind of start and not feel like we were always behind. And Concordia, I think a handful of programs have started, before and after, and they've had club programs. And there was no club lacrosse program at Concordia University, St.
Right.
Paul. And so that first year, recruiting 18-year-olds, and then coaching 18-year-olds was a doozy, to say the least. Yeah.
Was that the perfect time to start a D2 program in Minnesota, though? Like, I feel like that's when, not, just look, boys and girls was starting to do that upswing. There was more people playing, more people really into it. Boys and girls starting to go NCAA out of state. Well, let's keep them in state and have a program here.
Absolutely. I mean, that was my pitch every day. Why go to Indiana or Ohio or Kansas when you could stay in Minnesota and, compete at the highest level and have all of those resources? We were the first Division II program in the 5-state area. It was a 600-mile radius to our nearest Division II opponent. And let me tell you, when we logged the bus miles, it was depressing to know how far and consistently we were on a bus. But truly, trailblazers, like you said, Katie, that group was really, really, really special. Yeah.
Go ahead.
How was the jump from from assistant to head coach, especially at the college level, and how that changed? I know there's a lot more that goes into like what the responsibilities of a head coach are. It's not just show up at the field and coach lacrosse every day. There's a lot more responsibilities. How did how did that impact you, or kind of maybe what surprised you about that?
Yeah, I think I was ready for the extra of the logistics and the planning and the executing. The part that really was difficult, and I would say probably still is the player dynamic. Every program that I'm the assistant coach for, I mean, awesome, right? Awesome vibes, just really, really long-standing relationships beyond that season. And in the times where I'm the head coach, it's more difficult, right? Because the boundaries are more clear. And it's harder to kind of break down some of those barriers. And certainly felt that in that transition, that was probably what I felt most. And, I was able to spend a lot more time with them as the head coach, being able to do player meetings and, kind of all the time on the road. But yeah, that was probably the hardest part of the transition.
Um, couple like kind of bouncing around questions before we kind of get to the final or kind of last thoughts. What as we have talked about all the programs you've been with, different levels, different times in your life, what are some of the most rewarding, times or memories, that you still carry with you?
Let us get to the current. How did you get to Boston and where you're at now, I guess, too, and then answer that question, if I may.
Yeah,
Yeah, that actually, yeah, that's a good segue too.
yeah. So being at Concordia Division II, the highest level of lacrosse in Minnesota, I really felt like I was at the pinnacle in a lot of ways, and that I was going to be there forever. I really invested a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into that program. And then when an opportunity came to kind of couple coaching with athletic administration, that is when I made the jump to the Hill School in Pennsylvania. Amazing. So it's a boarding school, which is something that I think
Wild.
I'm not very used to.
I could dive so far into that. I'd want to know everything about. I am so fascinated by like the East Coast culture of that. That would be fascinating.
It is fascinating. That's podcast number 2.
Yeah, okay. I love it. Or like off the cuff.
Yeah, yeah. So being there, I was there for 4 years. I was a head lacrosse coach, assistant AD, eventually became the associate AD, and really found, it was a big draw to go into kind of a lacrosse hotbed,
I
where
was gonna say, did you just like Google open positions and you're like, Pennsylvania sounds nice?
actually they Googled and they found me.
Wow.
It was Spanish speaking, athletic administration and lacrosse coach.
Perfect.
And, it's the boarding school thing is a really intricate puzzle in terms because every coach is a teacher, is an administrator, and lives on campus. And
Yeah.
so yeah, I have to credit Google for my transition out to the East Coast. But I did that for 4 years, and then just 2.5 years ago now, I made the jump to be the athletic director at Pomfret School, another co-ed boarding school, 9 through 12, and it's been awesome. I'm the head lacrosse coach here too,
Sweet.
so it keeps my plate very, very full,
Yeah.
especially in just oh my goodness, a month and a half here.
Yep.
Uh, we start a lot earlier out here. That's a
Yep.
huge difference.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then remind me, Austin, what your question was, the segue.
Oh, yeah, no, just, kind of looking back on everything, what are some of the most, memorable and rewarding parts, of your coaching career so
Yeah.
far?
Yeah. It's a really, really hard question to answer, right? I think um, every program has really left a formidable mark on who I am today and how I am the coach I am today and how I'm the administrator I am today. Um, and some of the pieces like the U19 game in Scotland 2015 was a formidable moment, like a big memory for me because this was the first time Columbia women's lacrosse was getting on a fully lined field ever. And so we literally arrive at the complex and the girls, our eyes wide open, like, oh my goodness, this is what it actually looks like. This is what 2 cages, the proper distance away from each other looks like. So we had our first practice and we had to spread out, we had to spread out, we had to spread out. And it was just, the whole thing. So we had our pool play and we had one win in that pool play, which was like epic. We were like very overjoyed with that. So then we are into bracket play. And the last contest for us was the 11th place because in world championships, you have to play every single place out. So there's like a 13th place game and there's every place. And the game was a really good game. We were almost tied and or we were tied for a bit and then we ended up losing by 3 to Finland. And I remember my like US coach hat, and I was just frustrated and I was really mad. And I was like, we shouldn't have lost this game. If we did X, Y, and Z better, we could have made this goal and we blah, 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 right? And I remember begrudgingly like walking towards the handshake line, and then our girls didn't do the handshake line and they were like just running over to the Finland like team circle. I was like, girls, no, don't do that, because we're like learning the basics of like how do you interact in lacrosse, right? And sure enough, like 2 girls who were playing each other on the field, our player was trying to teach them salsa and the salsa dance. And so then she was like, oh, Melly's so much better. Come on over and teach her. And so then they started soon enough, as I'm having my little pity party, the whole entire 2 teams are in this big circle dancing salsa. The announcer from Spain puts on this epic,
Yeah.
really
He's
classic
like, I got a
salsa.
song. He's like, I love
Yeah,
this. Yeah.
for sure. And we're all dancing, we're all crying, and it's like, who cares about the results of the game? And that was such a big memory for me as a coach. And I think, it really just highlights, like, yeah, of course we all want to win, and of course we're going to do everything we can, but when it all boils down, all these memories are all the other things. So that was a pretty big one for me.
Yeah, we have a pretty rockin' AD at the high school we coach at, and he always reminds me of that. He's like, they don't, because I coach U10s and I coach high school, and so obviously U10s we want to win. I have an A team, so we're kind of trying to instill that, but like at the end of the day, you can't. You literally can't. And with high school, it's so different, and he always reminds me that he's like, they, even the high schoolers don't really remember the wins and losses like as much as we do, and it's like they'll remember the jorts and they'll remember the bus rides, and like at really every year it always comes down to like their favorite moments are those silly things of, yeah, dancing salsa with Finland. Like it's so true. It's a good reminder.
Right.
For young coaches, or coaches who, want to learn more about the process, I hope they listen to this episode because, I feel like, not accepting, a no reply, and, if you want, something to happen, take notes from you. But, what other, advice to a young coach, a new coach, a coach who, wants to get maybe more into it? What advice, might you have for them?
Yeah, I mean, I think you teed it up pretty perfectly. Be persistent, you know? Whether it's, a new program or a program that you're really interested in getting involved with, really be persistent and demonstrating your interest. Being humble is very important. And I think most young coaches, I know in my young time, I could have taken a couple of pages out of that book too. And, I think the other thing specifically in Minnesota lacrosse is just remember it is a very small world, right? Katie, you and I, we were playing on the same field and doing all those things. And look, here we are like 20 years later. Um, and like a great anecdote for that is Rachel France she was a player on the Augsburg team, and her time, so I was her coach. And then fast forward, she has some family who lived in Colombia. And so her and I were connecting, and this was like in 2019. And she was like, I really want to get involved. What can I do? And I got her set up and connected with the folks. And she moved down there and she
Oh
did
wow.
she did the whole thing. And so, her and I were kind of, coaching and doing a lot with Columbia Lacrosse together. And then in the 2017 World Cup in Towson, she was the head coach and I was a player, and she was my coach.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
so, it feels like it always comes full circle. And so be open, be humble, be persistent, and, good things will come.
Along the way, any mentors or people you want to, shout out that helped your journey, along the way?
Yeah. Yes. So my assistant coach in the 2013, kind of Lakeville North push, his name is Gary Gregus, and he
We
was,
know him well. He was my coach at Jefferson,
oh,
and then he coached at Prior Lake, so we all know him. Yeah.
yeah, he was such a blessing. When I say I needed to, be a little humbled as a young coach, he was
Yeah.
that person, absolutely. As a
Yeah.
veteran coach in my ear saying, are you sure you want to do that? Are you sure you want to do that? And being so amazing of, I was still, the head coach, and I think there were a lot of people who were questioning, like, you're bringing in Gary Gregus, who is a
Yeah.
very well-established veteran coach as your assistant. And at the time, I was like, shoot, young, um, and having him was the best thing I have ever done. Um, and it was so good for Lakeville North. It was so good for he and I and our relationship. He is a natural educator. And, last spring, I went to dial his number just to say,
Yeah.
hey, my
Yeah.
goalie is a 7 to the ball. What can I do here?
Yeah.
And that was, just uh, I just think about him really, really, really consistently. So he's a big mentor for me and somebody who has left a huge mark still. So I know there's a lot of people thinking about you, Gary.
Yes.
Gee.
It's, and I think too, like, I mean, because like you said, he was never an AD, he was just a teacher, right? I think he was just a teacher, but like, I mean, that's whatever year that is for him, again, like you said, not only to leave head coaching positions, but to all of a sudden step into more assistant roles and then into women's lacrosse. Like
Yeah.
for someone kind of like, I do kind of think of that even because at the time in high school, I was like, who's this old guy? And
For
then, but then
sure.
even in his time in Prior Lake, it's like he did, and like my dad knew him from the hockey world, and it's like to leave that and then to step into women's lacrosse in Minnesota, and then as like a third assistant sometimes, and to really just kind of, and like even at Jefferson when I was there, he was the assistant coach to a woman. It's like it just kind of seems that to me was a little, again, really humble and little before his time, and for his generation to do something like that really almost almost just is kind of, again, like a trailblazer in his own way too, of like, and I don't think I, even as a later an adult knowing him, coaching against him, really even realized that, to be like, wow, in 2005 or whatever, you left all of like your resume and came into lacrosse to just kind of like help out. Really, he was really, I mean, he was a coach, but like that's kind of what his role was. And so I agree, he definitely, so I'm glad he that, again, small world, that it's just like he was influential in such a way.
I'm interested, to hear your thoughts. You've been very involved in international all the way to youth and kind of everything in between, and obviously still are. What do you see for the future of lacrosse, or where do you see the game going? Kind of open ended. You could kind of take that any way you want, but interested in your thoughts on that.
Yeah, right. What a loaded question. And who knows? I think so. Last summer, I worked with Athletes Unlimited professional lacrosse, and seeing that landscape, incredible, working with those athletes at such a high level, a close level. We were all, again, kind of sleeping under the same roof and at the same hotel. And to see how much the game has evolved at the highest level is incredible. And now that the WLL is here, we're excited to see kind of what that will materialize into. Um, and the game of sixes, yeah, I'm a little, the jury's still out for me. I've played sixes, not for me for sure as a player. And coaching sixes is a totally different game than traditional fields. And I think, I mean, you'll see dynamic, outstanding field players just kind of fade away in sixes. And then vice versa. People who kind of don't do a lot on the traditional side thrive in sixes. So I think watching to see how the lacrosse world responds to the Olympic vision of sixes will be interesting.
In your part of the country and the circles that you're a part of, and maybe people you talk to, I guess I won't speak for the entire state of Minnesota, but I think I'll speak for Ted and I. We view sixes as a great off-season opportunity, a great off-season development, another fun, version of lacrosse. Is that how most people are viewing it, or do you hear, oh, this is Olympics, this is the future of the game, um, or is it somewhere in the middle?
I think it's more in line with what you first described, where it is a fun alternative training. Maybe you're in an area where you can't fill a full roster, so you're trying the sixes route. Um, and I hope, I guess the traditionalist in me hopes that is how it remains. I'm still like all for skirts in the game and goggles, no helmets, and I'm very much at my core. Don't really want to change some of those things, but I do think sixes is a great game for developing. whether that's at the youth level, whether that's in a non-traditional area. It can be really, really impactful in that way.
For sure. Yeah, I think we definitely agree on that. Final question. We ask every guest this, and that is, what is your alley? This could be something you're, passionate about or thinking about this week, this month, this year. It can be a lifelong thing. It can just be something you were thinking about today after a Vikings loss. You can kind of take it any direction you want, on or off the field. So yeah, what is your alley?
Well, definitely not talking about the Vikings anymore. I can't deal with that heartbreak. But I would say we've talked a lot about lacrosse, and something that I'm really passionate about that is somewhat separate to lacrosse is traveling. And the ability to, I just really encourage everybody and anybody to go to a different country, go to a different region of this country, explore, ask questions, be uncomfortable, and you will learn so much. And, I've really had the opportunity to travel with lacrosse, but you can also, I think anybody listening, you can travel, you can go to Italy and find Team Italy and say, hey, can I run a clinic for you? Because they would love that. So would Colombia. So would, any nation. So I think, getting out, experiencing, traveling, but when and if you can tie it to something else that is, a deep passion of yours is pretty neat. So that's my alley.
I think
Where's your
we.
favorite place
Oh yeah, go
you've
ahead.
been?
Oh gosh, there's no way I can
And
answer
then where is you have to pick one. And where is your top place you want to go?
Oh goodness. Well, so
And are you like a points gal? Are you
yeah.
like a travel hack gal?
Mm,
Okay.
well, so
You kind of have to be.
I'm a bit of a check mark gal. I know that can be polarizing. Like I've been to 28
Yep.
countries and all but 6 states in the United States. So
Oh
I just,
wow.
really do appreciate
Yeah.
the ability to check off
Yep.
some. I would say I'm more of a frugal traveler. That's what's the
Okay. Yep.
to continue
Yep.
being a traveler. But yeah, okay, so favorite places, I guess I base that on how eager am I to return.
Okay.
And Switzerland is one of the few places outside of Colombia. I go there like
Yep.
twice.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. That's like home for you.
That's home. That's
Cartagena, is it worth it? It's on my list.
yes, Cartagena.
Okay.
I will give you.
Yeah.
You have to go to Isla
Yeah.
when you go there. I'll give
It's
you a
on.
whole itinerary.
I think Colombia obviously is technically South America, but I love Latin America. Like, so I would love to go even more south, and
Yes,
Cartagena would be up there. But
amazing.
anyways, you're at Switzerland, winter,
Switzerland.
summer, skiing,
I
Christmas
I
markets.
I went both, and I
Okay.
skied in Zermatt in Switzerland, which was wild. I mean,
Okay.
it took me like 3 separate times to get down the mountain. I grew up behind
Yeah.
Buck Hill, right? And so it was like 6 Buck Hills. It was
Yeah.
just,
Right. Right. Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah. I wouldn't even put it in the same category.
I mean, I know. I'm just trying to, I don't know. It was crazy. I mean, you took maybe 6 different lifts to get to the
Yeah.
very,
Right.
it was
Okay.
huge. So, so then I went again just this last summer. I went back in the summer to Muiden, and wow, it's just this like tiny little town that you can only access by a
Yeah.
cable car, and that was
Wow.
incredible. So Switzerland has it all in any time.
Interesting.
So highly recommend, but I can also recommend anywhere and everywhere else because I love, love, love to travel.
Yeah. So what's your top place you haven't checked off yet?
Patagonia,
Ah,
for sure. High
yeah.
on the list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just to like hike and stuff. And
Yep. I want to track the W, and you just have to do it like over Christmas break. I'm on the academic calendar, so it's really
yes.
difficult
Yes.
to do that and not miss family Christmas.
Is that, well, right. Is that, have you been any far south, more south than
The
that? Or would that be like
north
the
I've been is
furthest
Peru.
south you'd be?
Peru's the furthest south I've been, so
Okay.
Patagonia would
I was
certainly
gonna
be.
ask you if you've done Peru then. So you're like ready.
Yeah,
You're ready for Patagonia.
you betcha. Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
I think that's a perfect segue, for people who do want to, connect with you, or do you have any initiatives or projects that you want, to shout out? for people to check out or connect with you.
Yeah. So Columbia Lacrosse, resources, 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 and we are always fundraising. So if there is, we have a PayPal link, and it's all tax. We can give you it can be tax deducted.
Deductible. Yeah. You get
Deductible.
at a little sheet.
Yeah.
We
So
got you.
it can all be deductible. Please donate to Columbia Lacrosse. That will help us, be able to support the athletes coming from Columbia, support the athletes who need visa documentation. That is really, really important as we're trying to, continue to show at the Heritage Cup, which will be in May in Boston, and then the Pala qualifiers, which is in Florida in June. So here we go.
Sweet.
Awesome. Well, Mo, thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing your story. We'll have to have you back on to do a deep dive on boarding schools, it sounds like. Appreciate your time, appreciate your story, and good luck with your season coming up and everything you're doing with Columbia Lacrosse.
Thank you guys so much. It's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure to go down memory lane, and thank you. Thank you so much.